Frankie McGrath had always led a sheltered life. Growing up in the sun-drenched, idyllic world of Southern California, she was raised by conservative parents who taught her to always do the right thing. At 20 years old, she was a diligent nursing student, dreaming of a simple, predictable future. But in 1965, the world was changing, and with it, her sense of purpose. The catalyst for her transformation came unexpectedly, with a simple phrase that would alter the course of her life. Women can be heroes. When Frankie heard these words, it was as if a door to an entirely new world had opened. The phrase echoed in her mind, challenging her to imagine a different future. It came as a revelation, urging her to step beyond the confines of her upbringing and into a role she had never before considered. The moment crystallized when her brother, Michael, shipped out to serve in Vietnam. Determined to contribute in a meaningful way and follow his path, Frankie made a bold decision. She would join the Army Nurse Corps. As soon as Frankie arrived in Vietnam, the reality of war hit her like a tidal wave. The heat was oppressive, the air thick with tension and the stench of fear and blood. The chaos and destruction she witnessed were overwhelming. Every day was a gamble of life and death, hope and betrayal. The young men she tended to were as green and inexperienced as she was, thrust into a nightmare from which there was no escape. Despite her training, nothing could have prepared her for the sheer scale of the suffering she encountered. Frankie's first week was a blur of frantic activity. She barely slept, moving from one wounded soldier to the next, her hands shaking but her resolve steady. She learned quickly, the adrenaline sharpening her skills. The camaraderie among the nurses and medics was palpable. They formed a tight-knit community bound by their shared ordeal. Friendships ran deep, forged in the crucible of war, yet they could be shattered in an instant by the harsh realities of their environment. One night, as mortar shells exploded in the distance, Frankie found herself comforting a young soldier named Jimmy. He was just 18, his face pale and eyes wide with fear. He had taken a bullet to the leg, and while the wound was not life-threatening, the psychological toll was immense. Frankie held his hand, speaking to him in soothing tones, trying to distract him from the pain. "Do you have a girlfriend back home?" as she asked, trying to keep him talking. Yeah, Jimmy replied, his voice trembling. "Her name's Sarah. We were going to get married after I got back." Frankie smiled, though her heart ached for him. "You'll see her again, Jimmy. You'll go home, and you'll marry her. Just hold on a little longer." Jimmy squeezed her hand, drawing strength from her words. In that moment, Frankie felt the weight of her role. She was not just a nurse. She was a lifeline, a beacon of hope in a world consumed by darkness. Days turned into weeks, and weeks into months. Frankie became more adept at handling the physical and emotional demands of her job. She witnessed acts of incredible bravery and heartbreaking loss. She also discovered a reservoir of strength within herself that she had never known existed. The words that had spurred her to action, "Women can be heroes," replayed in her mind, reinforcing her determination. One day, while on a supply run, her convoy was ambushed by enemy forces. The sound of gunfire erupted around them, and chaos ensued. Frankie, caught in the middle, felt a surge of fear but also a steely resolve. She took cover behind a vehicle, her heart pounding in her chest. Nearby, she saw a young medic named Tom, bleeding from a wound to his shoulder. Ignoring her own safety, Frankie crawled over to Tom. "Stay with me, Tom. I'm going to get you out of here," she said, her voice steady despite the terror gripping her. She applied pressure to his wound, then looked around for a way to get him to safety. Spotting a break in the gunfire, she seized the moment. With all her strength, she helped Tom to his feet and half-dragged, half-carried him to a safer position behind a cluster of rocks. As the firefight continued, Frankie worked quickly to stabilize Tom's wound. Her hands moved with practiced precision. Her mind focused solely on saving his life. When the shooting finally subsided, reinforcements arrived, and they were able to evacuate. Tom survived, thanks to Frankie's quick thinking and bravery. News of her heroism spread through the camp, and Frankie became a symbol of courage and resilience. Her fellow nurses and medics looked up to her, drawing inspiration from her unwavering dedication. But despite the accolades, Frankie remained humble. She knew that true heroism was not about recognition. It was about doing what was right, even in the face of overwhelming odds. As the months dragged on, the toll of the war became more apparent. Frankie saw the changes in herself and those around her. The initial idealism and patriotism had given way to a deeper understanding of the complexities and horrors of conflict. She bonded with fellow nurses like Alice, a fiery redhead with a quick wit, and Maria, a soft-spoken but fiercely competent medic. Together, they formed a support network, helping each other navigate the emotional minefields they encountered daily. One of the most challenging aspects was dealing with the psychological trauma of the soldiers. Frankie encountered many who were haunted by what they had seen and done. One such soldier was Lieutenant Jack Taylor. He had been a promising officer, but the constant exposure to violence had worn him down. He often sat in the corner of the makeshift hospital, staring into space, his eyes vacant. Frankie made it her mission to reach him. She would sit with him during her breaks, talking about anything and everything, trying to draw him out of his shell. Slowly, she began to see glimpses of the man he used to be. One evening, as the sun set over the camp, Jack finally opened up to her. I don't know how to go back to normal, he confessed, his voice barely above a whisper. The things I've seen, the things I've done, how can I live with it? Frankie placed a comforting hand on his arm. You're not alone, Jack. We're all trying to figure it out. But you have to believe that there's still good in the world, still something worth fighting for. We'll find our way back, together. Her words resonated with Jack, and slowly, he began to heal. Frankie's empathy and determination to help others became a source of strength for many in the camp. Despite the grueling conditions and emotional strain, there were moments of levity and hope. Frankie cherished these times, knowing they were essential to maintaining her sanity. She found joy in small things: a letter from home, a shared joke, a rare moment of peace. These brief respites allowed her to recharge and continue her work with renewed vigor. As the war dragged on, Frankie's thoughts often turned to the future. She knew that the battle didn't end when they left Vietnam. The real challenge lay in returning home and reintegrating into a society that didn't understand what they had endured. She worried about how she would be received and whether she could find a place for herself in a world that seemed so distant from the one she had known before. When the time finally came to leave Vietnam, Frankie felt a mixture of relief and apprehension. She and her fellow nurses had survived the crucible of war, but the journey ahead was uncertain. They returned to an America that was deeply divided, with angry protesters and a country eager to forget the painful chapter of Vietnam. The reception was far from the hero's welcome they had imagined. For Frankie, the transition was jarring. The sounds and sights of war were replaced by the mundane routines of civilian life, yet the memories of what she had experienced lingered. She struggled with feelings of isolation and disconnection, finding it difficult to relate to those who hadn't shared her journey. The support network she had formed in Vietnam became even more crucial. Frankie stayed in touch with Alice, Maria, and others who had served alongside her. They met regularly, providing a safe space to share their struggles and triumphs. Together, they navigated the complexities of their new reality, leaning on each other for strength and understanding. Frankie also found solace in helping other veterans. She volunteered at local hospitals and support groups, using her skills and experience to assist those who were grappling with their own post-war challenges. Her empathy and resilience made her a beacon of hope for many, and she quickly became a leader in the veteran community. One day, while attending a support group meeting, Frankie met Sarah, Jimmy's girlfriend, who was now his widow. Jimmy had succumbed to his injuries after returning home, and Sarah was struggling to cope with the loss. Recognizing the depth of her pain, Frankie reached out to her. "Hey Sarah, I knew Jimmy. He talked about you all the time. He loved you so much," Frankie said, her voice filled with compassion. Thanks for watching Echoes of Wisdom. If you enjoyed the video, like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for more. Share your thoughts in the comments. See you next time.